All right. Well, not what we were expecting today. On a Friday afternoon, Yankees go down 4-2 to the Cleveland Guardians in the ALDS. I am Casey, the producer of New York's #2 sports show, here with the person that everyone that subscribes knows, Derek. And Derek, man, we watched this game together. We were texting back and forth, and yeah, I mean, everything kind of like our worst nightmare, really.
Yeah, this was a pivotal game too. And first off, I kind of felt like once I knew that there was a rain out the night before, and this I'm not trying to have this come up as an excuse. This works for both Cleveland and the Yankees, although it takes a little bit away of the home field advantage. I find with it being a Friday afternoon game, it felt like the crowd wasn't as into it. I was at game one. And you can feel the electricity. It didn't feel quite that way in game two. It was just more of maybe just the pessimist in me didn't love how that happened. But in terms of the actual game itself, this was a pivotal game.
Yeah.
A really big game for Cleveland and the Yankees, where on the one hand, there's certainly pressure on the Guardians. You don't want to go down 2-0, but also for the Yankees, you want to hold serve and win both home games in a best of 5. So I feel like this was a pretty pivotal game, and it did not go the Yankees' way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just feel like the sense of urgency wasn't quite there for the Yankees, and just to note, Bieber was pitching today, and Bieber was someone that the Yankees have had success with in the playoffs in 2020, where we kind of beat him up pretty handily from what I recall. So, you think that coming into this that you feel pretty good about it, but yeah, I mean, he, after giving up that one home run, which we'll touch on soon, he kind of settled in, and then Cleveland kind of did what Cleveland does. They kind of just, got hit after hit, and the pitching came through for them, and Yankees really couldn't do much.
Yeah, I mean, Shane Bieber, who is considered Cleveland's ace, the Yankees have had success against him.
Yeah.
And Nestor Cortes Jr., has arguably really been the true ace of the staff this year. So at Yankee Stadium, you kind of didn't hate that matchup. And that's where we'll touch on this, sort of towards the end of the episode. But when you look ahead, Tristan McKenzie in Cleveland especially, that's not going to be an easy match. Game 3 will not be easy for the Yankees.
Not
now, Luis Severino, you like what you saw down the stretch there. But, I kind of felt like Bieber versus Cortez, I was hopeful that could go the Yankees' way, especially with it being at home. And so it's disappointing because once you get into a bullpen setup, that's where you lose that edge completely. And that's where the Yankees, they've really lost a lot of, whether it be recently or earlier in the season, the Yankees have lost a lot of key arms. And so they're a little bit thin down there. Yeah. And we saw that as the game kind of went on, it got away from them. Right,
absolutely. And, kind of like you were saying, having Cortez on the mound, you think you'd feel pretty good. And, he pitched decently, I would say, overall. But, you could tell if you watched the game that he wasn't quite the Nestor Cortez that we've come to really get used to. Or, maybe we took that a little bit for granted. But, yeah, he just didn't quite have it. And and then we had to go into our bullpen, and they kind of were a little shaky as we expected. So let's just get right into it. I mean, the one shining thing that happened for us today was that we got off to a 2-0 lead with Stanton hitting that home run. You want to just kind of go through that?
Yeah. So let's get into the game. And one lineup tweak, which made sense, and we'll get into things on a more individual basis, I think, as we speak about what happened in this game. But Josh Donaldson moves up to the 5 spot, as Waldo Cabrera moves down to 6, which made sense. Based on what had happened in game 1, Donaldson played pretty well, as Waldo not so much, and those two things kind of continued in game 2. But yeah, the Yankees strike first, and this was after Nestor kind of gets into a little bit of trouble in the top of the first. You get a leadoff bunt single by Steven Kwan. Ahmed Rosario singles will bring him back up. But then, Jose Ramirez on first pitch flies out, and then you get a double play by Oscar Gonzalez, leading to what you said. The first inning, Giancarlo Stanton is up with a runner on first and 2 out, and there's a 3-1 pitch where and you know, these umps in general are terrible. I thought this ump today was really bad. It's a called strike on a pitch that was definitely ball four.
Yeah.
However, it ends up working in the Yankees' favor as Giancarlo Stanton hits an opposite field 2-run shot to give the Yankees a 2-0 lead. So you're feeling good about things, and Giancarlo Stanton's I guess postseason prowess after a really bad 2018 series against the Red Sox. Ever since then, he really is a guy you look to come through postseason, and he does it again.
Yeah, he has come through in some clutch moments, and yeah, going up 2-0, you feel pretty good. You kind of feel like it's a continuation of game one. But unfortunately, that was all the runs scored. We should just kind of address the elephant in the room. But Aaron Judge, very disappointing start to this postseason. I mean, he had 4 strikeouts today. That was 8 in a row before he grounded out at his 5th at bat. But, I just, again, somebody that we've been relying on to come through for us, nothing.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to call it a concern, but it's a thing. And we saw that Aaron Judge down the stretch wasn't quite as sharp. And you can understand why. The home run chase had to have been in his head. Absolutely. And I understand that. So maybe he got into some bad habits today. And Aaron Boone was using this as an excuse. And I guess it's true. And I guess it should have been part of my opening was that the shadows did play a role for everyone. But Aaron Judge, who didn't look great in game one and just a ton of strikeouts. So until he had that last ground out, the first 7 outs that he made were all via strikeout. And that's old Aaron Judge stuff. That's things that we used to see.
Right.
And I think his postseason numbers, ever since, there's a bit of a turning point, I guess, but I don't think it's fully fair to say this because there were some big moments pre and post this. But if you remember in 2018 against the Red Sox, when he had the boombox playing New York after they beat Boston in Fenway, and it was kind of a rallying cry for Boston after.
Yep.
Probably pre and post that, I think. But again, I don't want to use that as like the demarcation where it's like that's it. Judge's postseason numbers simply are a little bit underwhelming, and so there's 2 conversations to be had here, and maybe it's not fair to get into the postseason talk on such a small sample.
Yeah.
But look, long story short is this: he was amazing this year, but if he does flounder the rest of the postseason, I'm sorry. Yankee fans won't forget that, and I won't forget that either. So it's early, but a really, really ugly beginning for Aaron Judge.
Yeah, he really needs to step up in these hopefully next 2 games, and that's it in Cleveland, because we really need him to come through. Just someone else to touch on, Oswaldo Cabrera has just been lost. I mean, there was 2 at-bats that I can recall from this game where he just swung at strike 3, which was clearly a ball 4 or just a ball outside of the zone. And, I'm hoping that Benintendi could somehow get back in here at some point.
Yeah, as Waldo, that's the other key guy. And Judge, is going nowhere. As Waldo, though, the conversation needs to be had, does he start game 3? Which I hate because now the Andrew Benintendi thing is very important, and I hope if we do get to the ALCS, you really, really hope that Andrew Benintendi is healthy, because that's enormous. And there was even a time I think that we could have maybe talked ourselves into, if Oswaldo continued to do well, we could have possibly talked ourselves into, okay, well maybe Benintendi somehow starts on the bench, but now no chance.
Right.
And even further, as much as I do not like Aaron Hicks. Like, I'm one of the least, I do not like Hicks at all.
He needs to stay away.
But the conversation kind of needs to be had. And let me just real quick here. Let me just see Tristan McKenzie's numbers. Maybe there's a story to tell there that could shed some light on whether they consider it. Aaron Hicks 0 for 4. Aaron Hicks 0 for 4, and Marwin. Interestingly enough, Marwin Gonzalez 1 for 3 with a homer. Now that would be quite the interesting move if they used Marwin over Hicks. I mean, I guess it can be considered, but. as well, though, I hope that he can break out of it, but there's concerns there. And not only, like you said, some key spots where he strikes out, but then also what we'll talk about is in the 10th inning, it wasn't an easy play, but there was a slight bit of hesitation and the ball drops in front of him. So really a rough game for Oswaldo Cabrera, 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. And really the key at bat was the 8th inning, first and second, 1 out. And he has a chance to walk, which would have given it basically 1 out to Kiner-Falefa, and he swings at ball 4.
Yeah, that was rough. The 8th inning was really our chance to do some real damage. And like you just said, Cabrera striking out swinging. And then, unfortunately, Higgy actually kind of got a good piece of the bat. But, just lined out to third. And, that kind of felt like the ball game even then. I really did not have faith in this bullpen coming through for us. And, that was it. But, just very just disappointing with this offense. It's just so feast or famine. And part of me thinks, and I really hope that this is not the case, but I almost feel like the Yankees are kind of, poo-pooing this series in a sense and kind of looking forward to Houston a little bit, especially after the way we kind of took care of business in game 1. I almost feel like, again, I mentioned it earlier, but they kind of just, put their foot off the brakes, and there just wasn't really that urgency. There was 2 errors today that were very routine kind of plays that were just, just careless stuff that just really, made the game out of reach for us. This Cleveland team, I feel like is, a lot better than people are giving credit for. I mean, they're able to string together hits. Yes, they're not a home run hitting team or anything like that. But they're capable of, like I said, putting together a rally, which they did. And it's just a little alarming. So like you said, hopefully game 3 we can kind of get back to our old ways offensively, but it's not going to be an easy feat.
No, it's not going to be easy at all. Cleveland, they're a pesky team, and they have really good pitching, and that goes a long way in the postseason. And the Yankees have good pitching themselves, but we've seen this Yankee offense really go very cold, especially in the postseason, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that again. Really, the formula for this game, and it's not going to get you by often, but they had to. They had to keep that 2-0 lead, and kind of going back into sort of, the play-by-play of it all. They're up 2-0, and things are looking pretty good. And the Yankees had a chance, and what was key, Nestor Cortes, big 1-2-3 inning the top of the second, which you want that. And I'm thinking, Absolutely. All right, perfect. Like, shut it right down, keep them at 0. And in the second inning, the Yankees had a chance to tack on. IKF with a single with 1 out, steals second, but then unfortunately Trevino ground out and Bader ground out. That bottom of the order, which was pretty effective in game 1, didn't do a whole lot in game 2, the last couple of spots there. And then let's jump to the bottom of the third. So Nestor again puts up a 0 at the top of the third. And this is where things, and it's kind of like it was the reverse of game 1, where game 1, there was that key third inning where Cleveland really almost broke it open. Cole gets out of it, Bader homers, and the whole momentum switches. This kind of happened here. So with 1 out, Rizzo walks. And it's funny, it kind of feels like Rizzo's the one that's being intentional. The way the Judge was being treated in the season, it's almost like Rizzo's getting that treatment where he's not getting a whole lot of pitches to hit. And then Glaber gets an infield single, so you're at first and second. To make things better, there's a wild pitch. And so it's second and third, 1 out, Yankees up 2-0. And I'm not going to kill Stanton for this for many reasons. One of them being that the count, he already had 2 strikes on him. I kind of wish Stanton took more of a patient approach, because you could tell that Bieber was trying to be fine with Stanton. It was a good pitch, and he strikes Stanton out. And so now it's second and third, 2 out. And then Josh Donaldson hits a nice line drive to the left. When he hit it, I'm thinking maybe this drops in front of Stephen Kwan. But Kwan runs in and makes the catch. So from what could have maybe been 4-0 to still 2-0. And that was a killer. That was
absolutely a killer. Yeah. And, maybe we should just now pivot to Nestor, because kind of shortly after that, we went to the bottom of the 4th inning, and it got very dicey for Nestor Cortes.
Yes.
Bases loaded, and he makes an incredible play. Ground ball right to him up in the sky. He fucking jumps up. grabs that thing and, makes a throw, if you want to even call it a throw, but it got to Rizzo and he was able to get the guy out at first.
Yeah.
And you think that, that was a big moment, big jam to get out of. And you kind of feel good about Nestor, especially, like we were saying, he might not really have had his A game stuff today. But then, kind of comes back to earth a little bit in the fifth and gets taken out eventually.
Yeah, the fourth inning is interesting because it should have never gotten there. And it could have been worse, but it certainly could have been better. He gets 2 quick outs. And so at this point, Nestor's really finding his groove a bit. Like, you could still tell that it wasn't like the Cortez that we're more accustomed to seeing, but still, you got 2 outs going on, and Josh Naylor hits a little soft grounder to Glaber. And Glaber does the best he can. I think he barehands it, throws it to Rizzo. And unfortunately, the connection just isn't there, where I don't think full blame goes to anyone. It's more of bad luck. Could the throw from Glaber have been slightly better? Yes. Could Rizzo have made the catch? Yes. And so the inning extends at that point, and it does come back to bite him. There's a 4-pitch walk to Owen Miller, which you don't love. And then it's Andres Gimenez, lefty, but Gimenez is one of their best hitters, and he's able to kind of dunk in an RBI single, makes it 2-1, and then Austin Hedges walks, which is really insane. I think at that point that was maybe a second walk, but like Casey had said, bases loaded spot, 2-1 game, and Miles Straw hits sort of a comebacker at Cortez, and he makes a really nice play and sort of quickly throws it over to Rizzo, scoops it, and they get the out. So, like you said, you're feeling okay about things, but it's still 2-1. But then in the 5th inning, the former Met, who I feel like has really always kind of killed the Yankees going back to the Subway Series, Ahmed Rosario, hits a game-tying home run. And at that point, you're not feeling good about things. So Rosario, maybe not quite dead center, but he really got into it, over 400 feet, 2-2 ball game.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. And then, we started seeing the relief and started seeing some of the decisions made by Boone in terms of how to manage this bullpen. Just kind of walk me through what you were thinking as Boone was making these decisions for the later half of the game.
Yeah. It gets more and more questionable as we go on, I think, with Boone. Yeah. And I kind of wish that he was held more to the fire a little bit. And in Boone's defense, with the state of the Yankees bullpen, like, there is no easy answers, but there were some definitely things to question. So Lou Trevino comes on. I'm a Lou Trevino fan. I like him. He had some rough numbers in Oakland. He's honestly been the best piece of the Frankie Montas trade.
For real.
And so Trevino, who did run into some trouble. There's a 1-out walk to Andres Gimenez, but sandwiched around some strikeouts. So there's a run on second, 2 outs, and he brings in Loaisiga. And Jonathan Loaisiga is seen as one of the top guys in the bullpen, and that has really played itself out. I've been a little bit hard on Loaisiga. The strikeouts simply aren't there, but he's been good and was effective again today. However, I thought it was a quick hook on Trevino in this for a couple of reasons. Knowing that's a tie game, I kind of want to, and I know that you're planning ahead because, you might be playing Saturday, Sunday, maybe even Monday, but I wish Trevino was kept in there. Loaisiga does get Straw out, so keep that in mind. In the bottom of the 6th, the Yankees do, we'll kind of jump back and forth here on the bullpen decisions. Bottom of the 6th, Yankees get an opportunity. First and second, 2 out. And again, there's Oswaldo Cabrera striking out within this on a situation where this one would have been a strike. It was a full count. He swings and misses. So it's first and second, and they take out Shane Bieber and bring in Trevor Stephan, former Yankee prospect, and the Yankees decide to go with Matt Carpenter in this spot. And I can't blame them. It was a tough call. Carpenter probably does match up better than Trevino, but it's a tough spot for Carpenter. This is his first major league at bat in a long time, and unfortunately he strikes out. There were some pitches to hit there, but Carpenter goes down swinging, and so we're still tied up at 2. Going to the 7th, Loaisiga stays on, and Loizaga does the job, pitches a 1-2-3 seventh. Then at the bottom of the seventh, Stefan strikes out the side. Bader, who struggled today offensively and defensively, and Judge and Rizzo go down as well. So to the eighth we go, and Loizaga gets the first out of the eighth. I agree with that entirely. You get the righty Gonzalez out. Then Wandy Peralta, who for me is probably my favorite guy in the pen currently. He's just been he works very quickly, doesn't throw that many pitches and gets the job done, and does it here. He gets a couple of outs in the eighth. And then we head to the bottom of the eighth where James Karinchuk comes on, and he was struggling to find the plate, very much so. And Giancarlo Stanton walks with one out. And there's good and there's bad here. Tim LoCastro pinch runs, which is a good thing, but you lose Stanton's bat, which eventually that spot would come up. And LoCastro still second, does his job. Donaldson walks, and then this was the big at-bat we were talking about, whereas Waldo Cabrera really needed to draw a walk, almost did so, and swings at ball four. Connor Falefa walks, where in that moment I'm thinking, damn, I don't love this, because now it'll be bases loaded. They're going to bring in Clase for Higgy, but to Higgy's credit, he does go down 0-2, but he hits a smash to third. Casey, I'm not sure what you thought. When he hit that ball, I'm thinking maybe that gets between short and third, but unfortunately right at Jose Ramirez.
I thought so. I mean, I jumped out of my seat, but yeah, unfortunately Ramirez fielded it, and yeah, that was the end of the inning. It was quite a bummer.
Yeah, that like you said before, that was the spot where it felt like you really had a chance. So now we head to the ninth inning. And Wandy, as he should have, starts the inning and he gets Jimenez out. Where I get frustrated is then Clay Holmes gets brought in. And it was kind of similar to the last setting where there was a little bit of bad, but actually he did okay, Clay Holmes. But I just wish that guys were pushed a little bit further so that we didn't eventually have to go to Jameson Taillon in the 10th. Like maybe you could have had Wandy pitch the 9th and then Clay Holmes pitch the 10th inning. I understand you can't map it out quite like that. But anyway, Holmes comes on, gets the first out, but then he walks Miles Straw, which was potentially a recipe for disaster. And to make matters worse, Anthony Rizzo with a fielding error on a ground ball by Stephen Kwan. You expect more from Rizzo, and I know he makes a lot of good plays, but that's the play he needs to make. It almost come back to bite them. Yep. But then Holmes does get Ahmed Rosario to ground out. So that portion is done. And in the bottom of the ninth, Clase still on. I wish that they had worked his pitch count more. There's a 1-out single by Rizzo, but then Torres grounds out. So we head to extra innings. And at that point, Holmes had thrown too many pitches, and they go to Jameson Taillon. And I had said this at the time. It wasn't as if, like, I wanted to see how it would go, but this was Jameson Taillon's first ever relief appearance. You start getting a little bit cute. And maybe this is a slight second guess, but this is where you run into trouble. What comes to mind to me, just as an example, with getting cute is like a couple of years ago. Now, it's not quite to this level. It really isn't. But like with the whole J-Hap, Davey Garcia, the Davey Garcia J-Hap thing, like, yep. Let's just kind of stick to the guys that are in the bullpen. And part of the fucking problem is that there's been a lot of injuries. Scott Efros would have been in the spot. Ron Marinaccio would have been in the spot. Yeah. Michael King would have been in the spot. Chad Green would have been in the spot. I can go on and on. So, like, now you bring in Jameson Taillon. And it's not as if he got beat around the park. But they spoke about it on the Yes Network postgame. But for some reason, no one asked about it to Boone. And the weird thing, and then David Cohn was saying, oh, you know, Jameson Taillon, you know, he was kind of the long guy. You know, once he got to extra innings, like they just wanted length of him. But I have to disagree with him because Clark Schmidt was warming up as soon as Taillon got ready. So this was not a situation where Taillon was just guaranteed to go the rest of the way. Plus the fact that knowing that Game 5 is a possibility, you might need Taillon now. I'm not even sure if I necessarily want to go in that direction. But I don't know that was a spot where like you can't destroy Boone for it, but like stick to the script, stick with Schmidt. Like he is more of a strikeout pitcher than Taillon. He knows, he's been in the pen. Look, maybe mentally it wouldn't have worked, But this was where Boone probably goes wrong with Taillon.
Yeah, I mean, and I absolutely agree, especially what you were saying to earlier about keeping Peralta in there for longer, and then you have Holmes pitch the 10th inning. It just seemed like he was just going way too much by the book, Boone, and just kind of, throwing out Holmes here because this is analytically what was probably the best thing for them, instead of just kind of feeling out the situation and seeing that Peralta seemed like he was very much in control of the situation, and just let it happen. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, we've discussed this in the past, but Boone's ability to kind of gauge the actual current climate of the situation versus what's on his little piece of paper telling him what to do. He's had a lot of difficulty with that in the past. And I think, ultimately it's not all on him, but he probably could have kept Peralta in there longer. Just let the situation breathe a little bit. Don't be so quick to change things up just because, this is what the analytics are telling you. It just seemed very much like that. And, we've seen it backfire quite a lot with Boone.
Yeah, and like it goes back to even earlier with Trevino, like let him go a little bit longer too. It's all, it's a domino effect. And so that's part of it. And look, it's not fair to totally crush Boone because this is also Brian Cashman as well. It's a set formula that they definitely discuss before the game begins. Like, all right, if it's this spot, this is who we're going to go with. And so, like, that's a tough one there. And it's easy to say after the fact, right? If Taillon does well, we're really not talking about it. Like, just that's the facts. But with Taillon, it didn't quite work out, and some of it not his fault. Honestly, Jose Ramirez dunks a double into left. Whereas Waldo Cabrera, you wish it wasn't an easy play, but he just slightly hesitated at the end and it drops in to make matters worse. Josh Donaldson, and he was trying to do the right thing. And this was a really set things off. If he was just at second base, you really could have worked out of it. And we'll talk about that, how you really could have. But unfortunately, Donaldson throws it away, and so Ramirez ends up at third. And Ramirez, it's great hustle. Jose Ramirez is their best player, and that's great hustle. Whereas Josh Donaldson, for example, I hate to, and look, he's been good, Donaldson, but this is where you got to hustle out of the box.
Yeah.
And force the team to make mistakes. And they forced the Yankees to make mistakes. So now what happens is, because there's a runner on third, the infield is in. And so Oscar Gonzalez dunks the ball, where if you're at normal death, Anthony Rizzo's easily making that catch. But now it dunks in. And so because Ramirez is at third, the run scores and it makes it 3-2. So if the runner's on second, you probably can navigate out of that. But then, so where Taillon at that point, all right, you know what? Dink and dunk, then he kind of gets hit hard. Josh Naylor doubles.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if Harrison Bader could have made this play, but his route, he was looking like Aaron Hicks out there. Did not look really good. And of course, the Yankees can't catch the break, where I was hoping it could maybe bounce over for a ground rule double. Now, only that would happen to the Yankees. So it stays in play. Gonzalez scores. It's 4-2, and Taillon is out of the game at that point. So, once they make it 4-2, you kind of feel like it's done. And another thing is, if you had kept it scoreless, they probably take Clase out of the game at that point too. But now, since Cleveland has this lead, they leave Clase in. Give Clark Schmidt credit. He's able to hold it at 4-2. What I found perplexing, and it wasn't a huge deal, the Yankees just hate intentionally walking people, because you have a runner on third, one out. Andres Jimenez is up with Luke Maile on deck, and then Miles Straw, and they're pitching to him. Luckily, it worked out, but I just could not understand that for the life of me. The Yankees, and that's another fucking, I know that's an analytical thing. I think intentionally walking, I think, is against analytics. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did, and that was just an easy spot. But anyway, no harm, no foul. So we go to the bottom of the 10th, and Emmanuel Clase stays on, and what I found interesting at the time, but now it makes more sense, Tim Locastro hits for himself with Aaron Hicks and Marlon Gonzalez on the bench. And I think Clase is a reverse split guy. In other words, he's better versus lefties than righties. So they leave Locastro in there. And the ump, it was interesting. Locastro, was the count 2-0 at the time? Maybe it was 1-0. There was a strike that was really probably a ball, and eventually Locastro flies out. Then Josh Donaldson walks. I mean, Clase was losing the plate, And then Oswaldo Cabrera, again, with a chance to redeem himself, strikes out, and he helped Clase as well. And then in Kiner-Falefa tying run, 2 outs, he grounds out to end the game. And so a very, a lot to unpack there. There was a lot of sort of strategy involved, and some, the game could have went either way. Like a couple of things where the Yankees could have held that lead early on, but the offense needs to do a lot more. And they had that chance in the 8th. Higgy hits that line drive. It doesn't work out, and the Yankees lose 4-2 in 10 innings.
Yeah, just everything that we've known about the Yankees in terms of their weaknesses kind of came into play really today, unfortunately, and hopefully we can bounce back in game 3. But kind of as we're wrapping up here, I mean, how do you feel about game 3? How do you feel about Severino? How do you feel about our chances to beat up on McKenzie? Just tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. Game 3 is going to be tough. Cleveland, they're going to be into it. Fans are going to be going wild. If you think about it, and we've seen longer droughts in the postseason, but Cleveland hasn't seen fans in the stadium. Now, if you remember, we played them in 2020 in the wild card round with no fans, but the last time that Cleveland, hosted a postseason game, I believe, was 2018. Now, we faced them in 2017, but I believe they did have a series, I think, versus the Astros. So it's been a little while, and the fans are going to be really into it. Tristan McKenzie has had a very good season for Cleveland and gave the Yankees problems. The one loss the Yankees had this season was to Tristan McKenzie at Cleveland. Yeah. And Luis Severino, I'm optimistic, but, it's been his one... his one postseason victory was against Cleveland. I believe I was actually at that game. I think it was game 4 of the ALDS in 2017. But we've seen ups and downs from Severino. He's at a different point in his career now. Back then he was kind of more considered, I guess, the ace or maybe Tanaka. And we saw Severino really shit his pants in some big spots. I'm not expecting that here. I think that he'll keep them in it. But you're expecting a lot from Severino. So this is a game that I think will be difficult. If you can win it, I think you're feeling a lot better about things, because game 4 is likely a game 1 rematch of Garrett Cole, which again, we need to see how he does again, versus Cal Quantrill, which on paper, you give the Yankees the edge there. So this is going to be a really big game 3. Going into it, it's the game that I think I feel the worst about out of all of them. If you lose it, the series isn't over. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious what you think in terms of, if I told you, would you take there being a game 5? In other words, would you take a split of the 2 games in Cleveland?
I mean, I think if it did get to a game 5, I think I still feel pretty good about us coming through with it. But I mean, I really see this game tomorrow as a must win. I really do. Even with Garrett Cole in game 4, because we know that, he's capable of giving up the home run ball. And
yes,
we just got to hope that home run ball is not a 3-run home run, only a solo shot or something like that. But, it seems like it's almost inevitable at this point that he's going to give up that. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I still want to believe that our bats are going to come through for us. Because I mean, I just feel like this team, I just feel like Judge is due to break out. I still have faith in him, and I still have faith in some of these other batters that I haven't really showed up today, like Bader, for example. I still have, good hopes for him. But, again, I just feel like a lot of people in the media in general have kind of counted Cleveland out from the get-go, and that this should have been an easy series for us. And I never really saw it like that. I think, yes, we are the better team. Yes, we should take care of business. But look, baseball is a weird sport and anything can happen. But yeah, I mean, again, I think this game tomorrow is huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And I agree. I never thought the Yankees would win it in 3. I guess I was maybe hopeful that maybe the Yankees win the first 2, maybe lose game 3 in Cleveland, maybe wrap it up in 4 in a best case scenario. But I agree. I mean, Cleveland, their pitching is excellent. And Terry Francona, we know him all too well from the Red Sox.
Way too well.
And so you know that he's going to have them ready. And so it was never going to be easy. Before we close out, a couple of just thoughts that I'm having. I
Yeah, go
wonder
ahead.
what you think on this in terms of potential lineup changes. There's two that potentially come to mind. One of them being at the catcher position, and I'm not saying I endorse it, but I'm wondering if it's possible. Kyle Higashioka had been doing well down the stretch. We did see him have that nice line drive. But the bigger thing here is, and I should have given this more of an in-depth look on a game log standpoint, but I'm almost 100% positive. Higashioka was the catcher for Severino in that 7 no-hit inning game versus Texas.
Yep.
So you just wonder if maybe, and regardless of how Higgy does in this game, they'll go back to Trevino with Cole in game 4. Ironically enough, where Higgy used to be Cole's catcher,
right,
it's now Cole Trevino. I do wonder if maybe Higgy, if he finds himself in the lineup with Severino, is that sort of a battery mate situation? Just a thought here. I don't think it's something that people are thinking about, but if we look at that lineup and see Higgy in there, I wouldn't be stunned.
No, me either.
By that.
Me either. Not at all. And like you said, the last outing, was basically, well, it was a no hitter for Sevy. So you might as well just keep that going until something doesn't quite click. But yeah, I could definitely see Higgy in the lineup tomorrow, the starting lineup, and then have Trev come in later on if we need.
Exactly, like one of those things again where Carpenter pinch hits for Higgy, and then you bring Trevino in. So that wouldn't surprise you. And then the interesting thing again, Oswaldo Cabrera. Do they stick with him, or will you see Hicks or even Marwin replace him? That's the bigger question, and I'm curious to see where you go with it. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, just the way that I see Boone and the way that Boone operates, I feel like Boone is going to give Cabrera that other chance in this game. But if he doesn't deliver, let's say in 2 at-bats, maybe then you pivot to Gonzalez or something like that. But I think right now, gun to my head, I think Boone sticks with Cabrera just for consistency's sake and just because he's a young kid with that, tenacity and that grit and everything. So that's what I would lean towards at the moment.
I tend to agree with you. I do. Especially because I really think Hicks, is really, which I'm happy about, I think he's really fallen out of favor.
Yeah.
I really think that they don't want to go there. And even though Marwin does weirdly have that 1-for-3 with a homer, I don't think that's quite enough of a sample size for them to go in a different direction. Now, like you said, if Oswaldo struggles in game 3, I really think the noise will increase further. I guess maybe this is a better question. Maybe Cabrera, maybe you slot him down where maybe you move Carneleffa up to the 6th spot, maybe move Oswaldo down to the 7 hole. Maybe you see a tweak like that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Because I think Carneleffa is someone that you especially with Donaldson getting on as much as he does, Carneleffa is one of the guys that you kind of like in a spot to maybe just get that RBI single, just to kind of make some contact and to kind of move the line, along. So, yeah, going to be an interesting game 3 as we shift to Cleveland. Will the series end in Cleveland? Do we go back to New York? I think certainly those chances have definitely increased that we do go to a game 5. And if I had to predict, and this is probably the easy prediction, is I think that, I don't know which one it is, but I think you might see a split in Cleveland. I think you might be seeing a game 5 in New York, but these things can turn quickly. We've seen it in the past in Yankee years past where the Yankees have lost that critical game 2 at home and never found their way home. I think about 2002 against the Angels.
Yeah.
I think about 2006 versus the Tigers as a couple of examples where, things are looking great after game 1. And then just like that, it's gone. So we'll see what happens. Tough loss today. Hope the Yankees can shake it off and Aaron Judge can get back to the way that he was as the series shifts back to Cleveland.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Judge, man. Let's get some hits going. At least make some contact with the ball, man. I mean, you did get a ground ball, so I guess that is partial contact, but we need actual hits now. But hopefully we're wrong about this game 5 and it just ends in 4 with the Yankees getting 2 in Cleveland. We'll be back here tomorrow for game 3 recap. But again, this is the New York #2 Sports Show. Guys, please subscribe. We've built up a little bit of a fan base here. We're trying to keep the momentum going. We cover all things Rangers, New York Giants, and of course the Yankees right here. So, there'll be a Ranger game later tonight. We'll be recapping that as well. Of course, the Giants game happens on Sunday, big one against the Ravens. So, guys,
Huge.
please, just New Yorkers, we want you to be part of this community with us. We love our New York sports. And, let's go Yankees. Derek, it's been a pleasure. Audience, we love you all.